Building a business is a grind, and it's easy to lose yourself in the hunt for quick wins and fast cash. But what happens when you finally reach the top and realized you missed the whole point? In this episode of the Break Free podcast, we sit down with Braun, a seasoned leader who worked his way up to own the company he once served. He opens up about the raw struggles of leadership, the power of starting with your why, and why being a servant leader is the real secret to lasting success. If you're tired of the get-rich-quick noise and want to build a career that actually means something, you can't miss this. Don't just build a business, build a legacy. Click the link to listen to the full episode of the Break Free podcast with Braun and discover the true meaning of success.
You can win some really short-term victories and short-term battles, but it may not enhance your brand. It may not enhance your reputation. It may not strengthen your identity. But if you aim high and you win, even if you lose, you can still win on your brand and your reputation, on your personality and your character. That will serve you well over the long term.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Break Free podcast, where we're interviewing people, business leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, top executives on how they are running their businesses and how they are adding exceptional value to the economy and to their societies. Today we have with us Braun. Perry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David, for the invitation. It's very nice to meet you.
Perry, can you please correct me? Because I have this tendency of misspelling and mispronouncing names. Is that the right way, the way I said your name?
Yes, Braun, B-R-A-U-N, Braun.
Perry Braun. Excellent.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
Perry, where are you located and what do you do for a living?
I'm based out of Chicago, Illinois. I run a business consulting company from the Cleveland, Ohio area, and we work with clients in the insurance brokerage industry to help improve their financial and operational performance. In other words, make them better so they serve their customers better.
That's wonderful. So if specifically insurance brokers then, right?
That's correct. But the activities we perform and the service we provide is not just for the insurance brokerage industry. It is transferable to any industry.
I was going to say, because, I run a software consulting company. It's been for 20 years and we're always trying to go to the next level, how to attract the best clients, how do we provide our services better, how do we advise our clients on what they should do, because pretty much that's what an insurance broker does, right? Like you come in, you attend your client and you try to provide the best coverage for their needs depending on their individual needs, right?
Correct. And I think that's well said. And I think the way we sort of describe it, David, is that you have a particular risk. You also have a budget. And we would like to make sure that we're marrying up within what you can afford an insurance policy that protects you financially. And if it's a business related, protects your assets. And if it's employment related, we're protecting your employees and your people. So it's assets, it's people, it's culture. It's all three of those environments.
So, Perry, did you found the Benefit Advisors?
No, it was founded in 2002 by some insurance brokers. And I started working with the firm in 2012 and then purchased it from the parent company, the Alera Group. And it's been independent since 2023.
That is fantastic. That is a beautiful story. Because you actually work for the company, you work your way up, and then you were so successful that you were able to actually get it from the owners. Beautiful, beautiful strategy. As far as entrepreneurship goes, it's very hard to start a business from scratch. It's really, really hard, right? And the way you did it is very unique, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think in small business today, if you can find successors to your business, I think it's also good for the successor because they know the business, they know what it takes to be successful. There's not really a learning curve. It really becomes just a question of capital. Do they have the capital to now buy out you and then become the boss and hopefully learn from that experience and find future successors for their own business? I think it adds value over the long term.
And for both, right? And it's a shame because, I think the statistics is more than 80% of businesses, they never sell. They just shut down or they go bankrupt, right? 80, 90%. It's a high number. And, it's so hard to build a successful business just to see it die because the owners are retiring, right?
Yeah, and I would say in the present economic climate where interest rates are a little bit high and the access to capital is a little bit more challenging, I think this is a really, really good time if you've got an idea to start a business. I think it's an excellent idea to take a chance, take some risk, and get out there and create your own value.
That's beautiful. So Perry, were you brought up in the insurance environment? Like, did you go to school for insurance? Like, tell me, how did you get into this business line?
Well, thanks for the question, David. The story is nobody ever goes to college thinking, I want to be an insurance agent or an insurance broker. They never really do that, right? And I'm one of the rare people who was born and raised in Canada, but lives in the United States and operates within the United States healthcare and insurance systems, but can speak to the Canadian one as well, right? And so I fell into this through, I think, what most people do. They have friends, and those friends hire you when you're first getting started and you find your way and you find your career. So I think the lesson to any and all who are listening, develop a good network of friends, develop a good network of mentors, because you just never know when an opportunity will present itself, and building that network out can help you land something that could turn into a very successful career.
That's true, Perry. If it wasn't for my network, I would have never been to where I am. First, I praise the Lord Jesus Christ for allowing me to be an entrepreneur because everything comes from Him. As you can tell, I'm a believer.
Yeah.
But the networking. My first job I graduated as a computer scientist, as a software engineer, and my first job as a developer, I didn't know I had to build a network of people, but I was building a network of people by just, talking, to my peers and to my bosses and trying to be the best that I could. And the first relationship that I did was with the director of my department in such a way that when he left, he took me with him. So I moved up. My salary was almost doubled, just by, being friends with this guy that moved to a bigger company that needed me. Imagine if I didn't build that relationship, right?
Right. And I think the lesson to young people or younger people who are getting started is everyone you come in contact with is a future opportunity. They're a future opportunity. You may not see it right now, but nurture it, leave it on good terms, because you just never know when an opportunity will present itself. And having that relationship in your past is one that you can call on. If
I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Can you see me?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Super. Yeah. So last time I heard is that you need to nurture the relationship, right? Because you never know when it's going to back and benefit you, right?
That's exactly right. Correct.
One of the mistakes that I did when I took networking seriously later on in my career was that I was just looking for people to take advantage of the relationship. And that was very deceiving. And that was horrible. And my wife had to actually call me on it because I was just trying to meet as many people as I could to see who could I sell services to. And she's like, you're going to all these conferences, you're spending all this money, you come frustrated, you never sell anything. And you know why? I'm like, why? Because people can smell that you're just trying to get advantage of the relationship. Go as a genuine person trying to make friends, and God will tell you whether you're going to get the relationships out of it or not. So I relaxed. I took her advice. I relaxed. I kept going, but I didn't. I went to learn in the conference, to mingle with people, to really see if I could add value first. And, that transformed the way I got relationships because, maybe 10% of the people you meet will become either your clients or your providers, but that 10% will define who you are, how much you accomplish, right?
Correct. We go through an exercise in our company where we start with our identity first. We start with who it is that we want to be and who it is we would like others to see us as before we talk about activity, before we talk about goals and success, because I believe personally, if I can frame up my identity, or in other words, if someone was to give the eulogy at my funeral, what would they say?
Yeah.
And from that springs the types of activities, the types of people that you start to become associated with. And I think to your point, David, if you can go to these conferences, or if you can go to networking sessions and you come with the mindset of serving others as opposed to being served, if you come there with the mindset of I'm going to do for others, then I believe we are repaid 10 times if we can help others in their mission and in their journey to where they're going to go.
It's true. So the mindset has to change. You have to become a servant instead of becoming a master. And then once you actually are there to see how you can serve unconditionally, then the value comes back to you. It's exactly the way it works. And it's funny because I read that in many business books, and turns out that it's a spiritual law, right?
Yeah.
You have to serve first in order to, fulfill your needs next. But it's funny because when you get hired, what happens? Do you get paid the first day? No. You get hired, you work the first month, and then you get paid. So you provide a service first, then you get paid.
Right.
So it's kind of obvious, right?
Right. And every day we get an opportunity to demonstrate what our identity is. Every day and every encounter, we get to prove what that identity is. And I believe your strongest network starts with social relationships before it turns into professional relationships.
Right.
Because a person who is extending themselves will do so if they have a really, really strong social bond and they know you, because again, they're extending their reputation, their brand, their personal approval to someone who trusts them. So it's that trust brokering process. And we would like to make sure that we made that recommendation. If I recommended David to a friend of mine, I'd like to make sure that that friend is not only satisfied, but really happy that I was able to broker these two wonderful people together to create greater value.
For sure. So you said you started, when did you start in the Benefits Advisors Network?
So the Benefit Advisors Network, I started with them in 2012. My career actually began in 1985 in the insurance industry here in the United States. And I have had various positions and jobs that changed over the course of time, but were always sort of an advancement in my career. And so it wasn't necessarily with the same company, but it was related to the industry of insurance or healthcare specifically. And it was various jobs that allow me to experience of very, very different environments and very, very different cultures and very, very different opportunities to fail and succeed. And I think each step along the way, if you have an honest conversation with yourself, you can learn from all that was good and all that was challenging, because I don't think it's ever bad, but I think it is challenging. And I think you can adapt and adjust to whatever the environment may bring in the future based on those experiences.
And it's just your attitude and your posture, right? Like, that's another thing that was hard for me to learn. I was always trying to win, and when I lost, I considered it a failure until one of my mentors told me, if you learn from it, it's not a failure. It's a learning experience that will actually catapult you to the next level.
Right.
And I believe that, yes, you learn from success, but also you learn more, I believe, from when you fail, isn't it?
Yeah. On the scale of victory, we're going to have more failures and we're going to have more victories.
Right?
Right. And I think our victories increase in numbers as we learn from the no's that we received, or what people would say failures. I think we can learn from that and improve what we're doing and how we're providing, or what we're providing. I think the phrase I've always used and sort of leaned back on was continuous improvement,
Yeah.
not an evolution, right? It's not a revolution. It's just continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And
I adopted that just about in 2013 in my business. The concept is called Kaizen, and it comes from Japan, I believe, right?
Mhm.
And when I realized that you can have continuous improvement, tiny bits of improvement at the time, they amalgamate into something big. Then you actually see big success after tiny little shifts that makes you a little bit better every cycle, right?
Right. So Kaizen is also very, very aligned with, in the United States at the time, was a gentleman by the name of Malcolm Baldrige. And Malcolm Baldrige had a very, very similar philosophy, which was revolutions take too much energy, but they don't necessarily stay.
Mm-hmm.
Evolution needs a little energy, but evolution needs energy when we are open to it. And I think that's what continuous improvement does. It bridges into, I'm open to change. I'm open to change in incremental ways. And I think as you said, the amalgamation or the consolidation of all those little steps become giant results in the future.
It's like a compound interest, right?
Correct. Exactly.
When I discovered compound interest, oh my God. First of all, I try to avoid all my mortgages and just have lines of credits. And second, it's like, okay, I think even Einstein said that this is one of the most incredible miracles of today's environment, right? Compound interest.
Exactly.
So Perry, talking about failures, what has been the biggest challenges that you have faced in your business, in your career, and how do you overcome?
So it's a great question. I think the biggest challenge, I think the challenges can be divided into two sort of categories. The first is internal challenges, and the second is external challenges. On the internal challenges, I think it is managing my own expectations with respect to success. And it is, it's not I don't think it's a selfish measure, but I think I have to continuously remind myself what success means as an internal measure. On the external side, it is trying to ultimately have a business owner, business leader, a business go through a change management process. Mm-hmm. And most individuals are reluctant to change. It's a hard process to go through. And I think the rewards on the other side can be known, it can be told, but it is sometimes a challenge to understand the amount of energy or the amount of time one needs to put into change, and they have to be open to accept it. And I think that's the most difficult part of the external part of what I deal with, which is having people accept that they do need to change, mm-hmm. and then put the energy into that on a consistent basis to see the benefits and see the results.
And it's hard, right? Change management, one of the hardest things we have to do also in our industry, as we implement new systems, new ways of doing things that are more efficient. People are stuck in the old ways, and they sometimes try to adapt the new, whatever it is that we're building, they try to adapt it to their old ways, and then thus they don't get the benefits of it, right?
Correct. And I think technology over the past 25, 30 years has brought with it a comforting language to say, just use this technology, things will be better. Right. Well, I think the truer answer is, if you can change what you do And how you do it, technology can be an accelerator in many, many ways to foster change and bring back a better result, but it doesn't necessarily replace the energy that's required to change. I think technology is just a part of a conversation that brings with it other workflows or processes, skill sets within the individual, and in concert with all three to bring about a better result.
For sure. Perry, when you started in benefits advisors, what was your first job position?
It was actually leading it for for two individuals that had owned the business, and so they were looking for someone to elevate the business model, and they tapped me. And again, it was somebody that I knew that recommended me. So I go back to that, brokering the relationship sort of conversation we had previously. And that's really how I landed into the position in 2012, just to lead the company on behalf of two individuals that owned it privately. And obviously their interest was, as with all investors, they would like to see a good return. I think we were able to do that consecutively until it was acquired by a larger company in 2017. And then I purchased it from that larger company in 2023.
That's amazing. Especially when you get acquired by a bigger entity, right? And you kept as the leader of the business, right? So they kept you there, despite that the bigger company bought the business, they kept you there as the leader, which is also sometimes they actually remove the leadership, but they bring their own leadership to maximize the business, right?
Sure. I mean, and again, you fall into really good circumstances at certain times during your career. And it's important to remember, that those times are in front of you. And sometimes we miss them. Sometimes we miss the subtleties of I'm in a good situation. Because again, we're a little bit focused on the tree and not the forest, is the analogy. And I was in a very, very good situation and very fortunate enough that at a certain time in 2022, I had conversations. They had conversations with me about taking it private, and I was very, very happy to do so. So I took it private, bought it from them, and we became an independent company serving clients on an independent basis starting in 2023.
That's wonderful. So, Perry, I know a service business is very hard to sell, especially when you have to get new clients to grow the business. Um, how did you manage to sell it the first time? Or what conditions did you have in the company so it was attractive to somebody else to buy it?
Well, so, again, I was fortunate to have an existing set of clients that came with the purchase when I bought it. And I would say that every client that I've had and continue to have, I've developed a personal relationship with. And it's actually a part in our selling process is to break bread and have dinner with them. I found that you get to know somebody pretty well when you have a chance to speak with them across the dinner table and spend a little bit of quality time with them and their team. And so we actually require that as one of the steps in our process to go meet with them, break bread, we call it, and just get to know their business and get to know their pain points. And what I have found in the course of that journey is that even if they tend to fire you over time, you still maintain that personal relationship and you still maintain the trust that comes from that personal relationship.
Right.
And so our selling pipeline is really based on three sort of channels. We're testing the social media channel to determine if, vehicles like LinkedIn and some of the other channels have some sort of conversion value. But the vast majority of all of our new client arrangements are through either centers of influence, which I know you're familiar with, and or direct referrals from clients. Because again, clients travel in really, really unique communities. And they uncover opportunities with peers to them. And we want our brand to be top of mind so that peer, that client of ours, when they find a peer that's in need, think of us and provide a referral into us, because those are the vast majority, the best clients to get are ones that are referring other clients to you.
That is great, especially for a service-based business. It's great advice for sure. It was very similar how I built my business to begin with. I started with, like I said, we have very similar businesses in complete different industries, but
Yeah.
it was networking and then relying on my clients to provide leads for other clients.
Yeah.
That's why I was telling all my team, I always told my team, you are as good as your last project, right? So
Right.
whatever the status of your last client is going to determine your success for your next client, because
Right.
you have to be delighting your clients and doing the extra mile, making sure they are very pleased with our services. And sometimes that's very hard to make, right? Like sometimes we make mistakes and they make mistakes, we make mistakes, there is misunderstandings throughout the project life cycle, but then we go and we rescue it and then we provide the extra service. So praise the Lord, we've had a very beautiful career with clients that stay with us over 10 years, 15 years, and some smaller clients that come and go. But it's incredible that that sustained the company until I was there. Now my company is self-managed, and the way that I was able to do it was investing heavily in marketing.
Sure.
So we don't rely so much on networking anymore, but the marketing piece, if you look at the marketing piece, is taking about at least 30% of our EBITDA, right? But now it's self-managed, right? So my participation on acquiring more clients is very minimal, close to none. And then I have a team now that's responsible for filling up that pipeline. But you still need to build the relationship with the client, exactly as you said, Perry. And I can only do this after 20 years of being in business.
Right. Right.
It took a long time for the industry to trust me. The industry as a whole, they know that we're a reputable company, right? Then you have to build that trust. And at the beginning, you don't have the resources. I didn't have any money for marketing. I didn't know how to do marketing. So I had to rely on myself and going and build those networks, right?
Yeah. The foundation, I think you would agree with this statement based on your own experience, David. I think the foundation is built around your brand and reputation. Your personal sweat equity that went into starting something, creating something, and in those formative years, delivering on your promise.
Yeah.
And doing it in such a way that those clients may not have been satisfied with every little detail along the way, but it launched well, it finished strong, and met or exceeded expectations. And that brand or reputation, enhanced over time, can be converted into a really, really strong marketing campaign because it has successive testimonials, it has successive years of experience, trials and tribulations, and things that are experience-based that other future clients can relate to and rely on. So I think the message I always try to pass along to younger people is play the long game, make the investment, don't look for the short-term return, look for the long-term value, because that pays more in the end than a series of just sort of short-term engagements or short-term starts and stops. But to do things that enhance and amplify your brand and reputation in the marketplace, that is your best equity out there.
You touched something of great value, Perry. If people just get this out of this podcast, you have to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
The people that go for short-term gain, they end up being bankrupt. You have to look at the long term and see that this is a long shot career. If you're in business and you want to be successful, you have to think ahead in terms of decades, not even years, because it takes a long time to build a reputation. It takes a long time to learn how to please your clients and how to acquire those clients.
Yeah,
that quick. But when you have something that you can get rich in a couple of years, be very careful because even if you get it, even if you become rich in 2 years, you don't have the business acumen in your heart to maintain that wealth. So you are going to end up losing it, doing some mistakes in the future, right?
Yeah, and again, you can either aim high but low, or you can aim high and aim high. What I mean by that is you can win some really, really short-term victories and short-term battles, but it may not enhance your brand. It may not enhance your reputation. It may not strengthen your identity. But if you aim high and you win, even if you lose, you could still win on your brand and your reputation, on your personality and your character. That will serve you well over the long term.
That's for sure. And I know it sounds boring, especially for the young entrepreneurs that are listening to this. It sounds boring, but believe me, I've been there, done that, and it's the best thing that works. Trying to get rich quick, I tried. I remember I had a company of 5 people back in 2008, 2009. I joined another person that he became my partner, and we did great together. He was excellent for sales and marketing. I was great for the engineering part. And we grew that business to 120 people in 2 years.
Wow.
And we were bringing more than $10 million a year in revenue. And I had a heart attack at the end of it. Mm-hmm. I actually literally almost died. Mm-hmm. And then my doctor became my psychologist, and she said, David, you're not even 40 years old. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Change your lifestyle, because you will end up dead. Why do you want the money for if you're dead? You're paralyzed in a wheelchair, right?
It's fair advice.
That's when I finally clicked. This is a long-term thing.
Yeah.
It's the little by little.
Yeah.
Right.
And again,
improvement.
And we want to be there for those that are with us too, right? We want to be there for the long term, and we want to be able to support them and be part of their journey, part of their experience. So yeah, I too believe that I take the long game in all things, rather than shortcuts and short victories.
For sure. So Perry, what's in the future for you? You've been in the industry for quite a while now. What do you want to do 5 years from now?
That's a great question. And when I purchased the business, I put a 10-year plan. So I'm on the almost the end of the 3rd year of my 10-year plan. And now I'm in growth mode. Now I'm in growing clients, growing the revenue, really focused on the foundation, really focused on the mission, really focused on what we were providing as value to customers in the first 3 years. And then 5 years from now, I hope to find a successor that will carry on and elevate this business and amplify this business even further.
That's wonderful. And it's good to know also what is your outcome, right? You have to run your business in a way that that eventually is going to shift to something else, whether it's a buyout or somebody else taking it over and run it for you because you want to retire. What's your end goal? I think it's very important to have that in mind. Even when you start in your company, it's like, what is your end goal? Because that will determine your strategy too, right?
Exactly. So I see for myself staying connected to the business, but working more in the way of just client engagements, as opposed to working on running the business, right, which is a very, very different set of activities and a very different set of stressors.
Right.
But to find that successor who can then run the business and elevate it, take it to, in computer language, right? It's 2.0, it's 3.0, it's 4.0, make better versions of what this can be and continue to strengthen the foundation of the business. So I look forward to having a voice in that process in the future, but not necessarily leading and running it, but contributing in a different way, which is to focus more exclusively on clients and working on client pain points and solving for their pain points.
Beautiful. That's for sure. So Perry, if you had a time machine and you could go back 20 years, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I think the message I would tell my younger self would be to be patient and just, play the long game. When you're in your 30s and your 40s, we all have certain priorities in our personal life and our financial goals within our personal life. We have family situations. And so I think we do get on a treadmill, and that treadmill has us trying to meet a series of short-term deliverables. And I think it's okay to step. I would just remind people, if they feel they're on that treadmill, step off. Just take a step off and go find a quiet place and think about what are some realistic things you'd like to accomplish in 3 to 5 year increments over the next 20 to 25 years. And be honest with yourself about what those deliverables look like that would make you the best version of yourself. So I think it's a great question. And I think going back, I would just tell myself to step off the treadmill and figure out what it is that you would like to become. And I go back to the identity question. When somebody's reading a eulogy, what do you want them to say? And are you living your life? Are you living your life according to that eulogy that you would like them to say? My suspicion is that we don't know when we're younger how we want people to speak about us when we're passing, because we don't really think about that. And I suspect when we do get to that place in our mind where we'd like for them to say this, we haven't necessarily lived or demonstrated a life that represents that.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of reach that point when we get much older and we say, okay, now I'm starting to live the way that eulogy is to be stated. And so I think it's just the natural evolution of what we do in our careers and our financial goals and financial priorities. The kids, where the kids are, if we have kids, if you're in a marriage, where you are in your marriage, there's lots of things that sort of feed that. But my advice is to everybody, just take a step off that treadmill once in a while and just think about you, decompress, reset what you think is important about you, and go back to the eulogy. What do you want that eulogy to say? And then work yourself in a way in which your identity matches to that eulogy.
Beautifully said. And, I wish I would have had that advice when I was younger.
So go ahead, David.
You think you're trying to achieve a law? For me, it was always financial independence. For me, it was always financial freedom, right? It's like, I'm going to work myself to death until I achieve this so I can have freedom.
Right.
Once I achieved that, it was safe. Because once you achieve certain level of freedom, if you don't apply yourself to continue to add value to the world, your fulfillment goes away, right? You have to make sure that you're always adding value to the world. That's why I do this podcast now, right? Like, I love adding value to the world in this way, where I can interview people like you, seasoned entrepreneurs, where we can really, impact the next generation, right? And provide the value. But that also fulfills me.
Yeah.
If I go to the to the Caribbean and drink margaritas for the rest of my life, that will be like a horrible jail, right?
Right. Exactly.
So, Perry, thank you so much for your time. It's been about 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and I know you're a busy executive. So I'll ask you one last question before we finish.
Mm-hmm.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway in North America, what would you write on it?
Align your heart and mind so they're traveling to the right place, and be a servant leader in the process.
Wow. You're on one of the people that had this super fast answer. A lot of people have to think about it. So can you give it to me again?
Align your heart and your mind, and put it in the right place.
And put it in the right place.
And be a servant leader.
Servant leader. Wow. I love that. And, servant leadership is what works, for sure. Mm-hmm. If you are there expecting people to serve you, it's the beginning of your biggest failure in life. I tell you by experience.
Yeah, exactly. We've all been there. We've all have experienced that.
And, and that's why I went back to my faith. Like, if you look at the life of Jesus Christ, it was a servant leadership. That's what he actually taught, right? And he was also an entrepreneur. When he started washing his disciples' feet, they didn't want to get them washed by their leader. But he's like, you have to understand, is the act of servitude that will bring you what you're looking for, right?
Exactly.
Which is backwards of what the world tells you, right? Larry, thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the week. If people would like to find you, hire your services, become part of your network, where can they find you?
Just jump on to LinkedIn, my friend.
LinkedIn. Fantastic. We will do that. Thank you, Perry. God bless, and have a beautiful rest of the week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.